Keys to the Shop, episode 425, tips for training up and supporting your manager. Well, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFirio. I am your host for the show. As always, I'm so happy to be here with you, sharing some information that I really hope is going to be beneficial to your career, to your coffee business. It's what Keys to the Shop is all about. We have almost 760 published episodes over the past 6.5 years. Go to keystotheshop.com. You can find all the main content there. Subscribe to the show. You will always be updated with new content as it comes out. We've got the Rate of Rise series on roasting. There's the Founder Fridays focused on great entrepreneurs around the world. And there's also the main episodes. On top of that, shift break episodes, the short format podcasts on Thursdays, just 10 minutes, but packed with very useful content. Like I said, you'll stay updated with all of that when you subscribe to Keys to the Shop. Don't forget to share these episodes on social media and with your connections and your team. I really want to tell you about Keys to the Shop consulting and coaching. You know, Keys to the Shop consulting is where I get to work with entrepreneurs who are starting their first coffee shop, or they are taking their existing operation with all their experience and leveling things up even more, or gaining clarity on problems that have come up. And they want tools to be able to thrive, to find joy in the process, to be successful at scale, to be profitable. There's all sorts of things that I get to talk to my clients about as they operate their coffee bars. And I would love to have a conversation with you as well. Just reach out, chris@keystotheshop.com, and we can set up a free 30-minute discovery call and talk all about it. Also, you know, in September is the first group of the Keyholder Coaching Group. Keyholder Coaching Group is a group of 5 entrepreneurs, coffee shop operators and owners who are dedicated to supporting one another and walking through challenges and problems and victories and the peaks and valleys that come with cafe operation and ownership. This is a 6-month group meeting twice a month for 2 hours at a time. So each member gets a lot of focus, a lot of conversation. And again, there's this great accountability and speaking into each other's lives. I would love to have you apply to be a part of this group. Again, the first group starting in September. Go to the show notes for this episode and click on the link to go to the Keyholder Coaching Group form to sign up and learn more. Or you can just reach out to me, chris@keystotheshop.com, and I will love to have a conversation with you about that. Hurry while you still can, because we're going to be deciding the first group mid-August or so, and then starting up in September. So again, email me for Keyholder Coaching Group, chris@keystotheshop.com. Now, I know that coffee is a thing that you need. I need it every day. But when that cup of coffee transcends the utility of coffee, that's when we are reminded of how much we love this industry or just love coffee. And when you use the ground control Cyclops brewer from Voga Coffee, that opportunity is extended to more and more people because it unlocks an incredible range and depth of flavor of each coffee you brew on it. Thanks to the SCA award-winning technology, the ground control brewer is used by amazing coffee roasters and retailers worldwide that are really wanting to amp up the level of quality in their coffee shop. It not only makes batch brew, but the extraction technology allows you to make batched iced lattes, batched cold brew. So it opens up a lot of channels for profitability and efficiency. Check them out at groundcontrol.coffee to learn more. If you're looking for quality, profitability, efficiency, and just a magical experience with coffee, check out the Ground Control Cyclops brewer. Again, groundcontrol.coffee. Now, at the time of recording this, I'm getting ready to go to Coffee Fest Anaheim, where I am a head judge for Coffee Fest latte art competition called the Latte Art World Championship Open. That is a competition that's now gone on for over 20 years now. And it's really awesome to see people do great things with milk, but also with plant-based beverages. And Pacific Barista Series is one of the sponsors of that event. And they are a sponsor of this show too. And that is because I love their community. I love their support of baristas, and I love their product. The Barista Series line of plant-based beverages is designed for baristas and approved by baristas globally. I think you really should be looking into using this on your bar. Check them out at pacificfoodservice.com. They will send you samples and you will absolutely love it. I just know you will. So check them out again, pacificfoodservice.com. If you're looking for the best plant-based beverages to serve your customers, I think it has to be the Barista Series from Pacific. All right, everybody. Well, I wanted to talk to you about something that is very important when it comes to a growing cafe, and that is the opportunity that a lot of people have to promote somebody to a management position. And I want to kind of go through this and talk about it from the very beginning through to the time where a manager can be seen as relatively self-sufficient, and get into some of the details of my thoughts and approach to this. And I'm talking often about this with my clients. And so I hope that this adds value to you wherever you find yourself right now as an operator looking to multiply the delegated authority in your shop. And that's what a manager is. A manager is not only a person who is meant to lead people to achieving the standards, those quality standards that you have for your coffee shop, but that is also someone who represents the values of your business as well. They are going to have to be a person of character, not just a person of skill, which a lot of people will promote a manager to a position of authority, which unfortunately is the main reason why people are promoted to manager or a trainer, is because they show skill in a particular area, but usually we don't look for their skill as leaders and, people who are respected amongst staff beyond their skills in latte art. Or, it could be that your barista is very good at, the inventory or being detail oriented and that kind of thing. But the skill of the manager is not so much that they can do those things really well, but how they are going to be able to lead people and be a positive influence in the cafe to have other people do it very well. And without that, what you're doing is you're basically creating an enhanced barista role where they increase their administrative responsibilities, but it feels like it's all on them, when it should be that they are tasked with leading a team of people that shares in these responsibilities across the cafe. And so when we're talking about training a manager and getting a manager set up for success, we have to start with first assessing their potential based on observed behavior. And that observation cannot simply be unreasonable faith in your own ability to infer somebody's potential, even though you might not be in the cafe very often. Desperation causes us to make things up and causes us to overlook gut checks. And I would urge you, they always say, hire slow. Okay, yes. Please do hire slow and promote somebody to a manager who you know is a patient, honorable, hard worker, detail-oriented, respected by people, loves people, follows through, communicates well, and is a learner. There's just so many other things you could talk about. Humble as a person. Although they are skilled, they are also very humble. So there's a great number of things that you can look at. And I would urge you to make sure that you are making a great decision when you first start out hiring a manager. Okay, so now let's say that you have made that decision that this person is going to be a manager and it is the right person for the job. And we know at this point, it could go several different ways. That person could be such noble character that they put up with a very chaotic process of transitioning the responsibilities from all on you to some on them. And it's only because they are so patient and graceful that they make it through. Others will not be as patient, and they may have been great candidates, but mismanagement of their training and trial by fire and other weird things that we do with our staff, it becomes too much and they don't want any part of management. Of course, the other option is that we do it well. And that's what we're going to talk about right now, is how to do it well. And of course, interspersed with this will be some distinctions of what things you could probably do wrong as well in the process. Now, the first thing in this is going to be that you have to have an onboarding plan for your manager. I would say that you should at least plan on 6 months of time. And that sounds like a lot, but it's not as though you're going to not have a manager during that time. That onboarding time is there to give structure to their instruction. It is a very important role. And we already have a problem in coffee with onboarding people too quickly. We imagine that people who are the right fit for the job should just rise to the occasion with minimal input from us, which is not fair. We've been over this many times, and so it is with a manager as well. We cannot just throw a manager into a position and have them, quote unquote, prove themselves and guess what it is we want them to do. We have to have already kind of thought through what it is we want them to do and how we want them to do it. It is basic management of a manager, and they have to have standards that are clearly articulated and expectations the same so that they can please you. And as I've been a manager in the past, I want to know what is going to make my boss happy. I want to have that structure that says, look, yes, there are things that you're going to do that are going to be helpful for the business. They could be extras and creative projects, but you start with the basics. It's like you can't learn how to improvise on an instrument unless you know the structure of things. And this is exactly what's happening here. You want them to be a great manager, somebody who thinks on their feet, somebody who can take a situation and lead people through challenging times, lead them through good times. But that has to be something that you train them to do through clear articulation over time, because people don't just learn overnight. People don't learn the way that you want them to lead simply by reading a book or reading a manual. There has to be a gradual and steady application of those things, because there is an entire work self that we bring to work that is as much of a personality as we are as a person, that needs to be saturated and adjusted for these new expectations. And that takes time. To have a 6-hour shift on Monday, not every bit of who you are at work is going to show up that day. That's not enough time to be able to adjust yourself and your kind of mental muscle memory. As a leader, you need days, weeks, you need months. And so it could be some people are a faster study and they have more flexibility and a smaller turning radius as a person, so they could come up to speed pretty quick. But I would recommend that you not graduate people too early, just like with barista training. You don't want to onboard people and then say, well, you know this, I'm not going to teach you that. You know that, I'm not going to teach you this. A lot of times the reason why we say, well, I don't want to insult you, you know how to do this, you know how to do that. That is selling somebody short, I think, because at least we owe them the opportunity to have a conversation. And even though you think somebody may know something, either you'll find out that they actually don't know as much as you thought, or they know more than you thought and it's confirmation. But either way, taking people through the same amount of time and affording them the opportunity to have the conversation and the focus is good, no matter what. And any person who is insulted by the idea that you're repeating to them or having a conversation with them about something that they already know, that's not the right fit for a manager anyway. That shows remarkable immaturity, because learners and people who are curious about life and about their craft relish the opportunity to learn in deeper ways and to reinforce basics. Okay. They don't want to avoid talking about basics in the future because they already know them, because they know those basics are a part of what makes them successful. So having an onboarding process is very important. Mapping out what subjects you're going to cover with them, starting with some of the most easy and accessible and moving your way toward things that are a little bit more involved. It could be that on the beginning of a journey, we're talking about just menial tasks and bite-sized leadership experiences with staff, or maybe they're leading a staff meeting, or maybe they're doing the inventory and that kind of thing. But by the end of this, they should have built up a lot of trust credit with their staff, and they should be doing one-on-ones. They, at this end, can start really owning the schedule and having conversations with people that involve maybe sometimes some, conflict resolution. And you are there as their coach to help them become good at this. And of course, they're, going to have ideas, and they will have ideas that you didn't have, but you have to take the position of a coach through this process, or else the manager is going to always wonder if they're doing the right thing. And you lose in the end because you are not fully exploring what it means to be a manager in your own cafe. That's the beauty of this, is that this person who is a manager is working out for you and with you this critical role that will live beyond them and their occupation of that role. When they leave, and they probably will, the next person will have a better opportunity than they did, because you're going to have it a little bit more down. You're going to have more wisdom and intuition, and it's because you paid attention and were intentional in the process of onboarding your manager. And so suffice it to say that we need to show support and be agents of clarity and resourcing along the whole path. You, when you put a manager in place, are not getting rid or freeing yourself from responsibility. Really have to embrace that idea. We're not getting rid of responsibility. You are switching responsibilities. You are trading responsibilities. You are taking the responsibility that you did have, which may have involved certain administrative tasks, and now you are taking on maybe a singular task of leading this person. And what your desire needs to be, your sense of urgency needs to be focused on, is how am I supporting and serving this individual? And too many people are concerned more with how is this person serving me? How are they serving the baristas? Not how am I serving them? And that's a great mindset shift to have. And once you do shift into that, you then become a little bit more resourceful yourself as an owner in support of them. Often the miscommunication that we have with people comes from mindset. It causes unnecessary drama with our managers. There's enough drama in the coffee shop. We don't need more in the administrative relationships. And so you need to have a lot of supportive behaviors, and supportive mindsets is what creates supportive behavior. And to that end, when we give something up, we can't take it back. That's one of the most frustrating things that happens when we start delegating, is we immediately see that the learning curve means that one or two times maybe something will be done not exactly the way you want it to be done. And we will swoop in and rob that person of the learning experience and undermine their authority. And by the way, undermine your own authority, because now we doubt your decisions. You had a decision that what this person is going to manage. Now you're taking that back. Okay, so the next time you promote somebody, no one's really going to believe you. No one's going to want that position, by the way, either, because they're not allowed to make mistakes. Okay, because you're just going to swoop in and it's going to be like, nope, I take that back. I take that back. I take that back. You're not doing it the way I want you to. And as I said in our latest episode, 424, we're talking about detail-oriented baristas and people not getting it. So the turn of phrase there to remember, again, is if people don't get it, it might be because you never gave it to them. And if people are not detail-oriented, it could be because you haven't oriented them to the details. Okay, so as a owner who is putting a manager in place, You owe it to them and you owe it to yourself to stay the course. And if you want to innovate a solution to what you might see as a problem of them, not exactly getting it the way you want, then you have to give it to them a different way. And you have to deliver information or training and innovate the system to support. Now, after a certain point, you might say, hey, I've done as much as I possibly can. And you have to be honest with yourself and know that you actually have, and not just that you're being frustrated and calling it quits so soon. This person is not working out. And that happens. It does happen. Life events change a person who you thought you knew. Some people just, can drop off the face of the earth. And it may not be right for them, and they thought it was, and you thought it was, and all the signs were a go. And I would say if you've done your due diligence, those moments are probably pretty rare. Usually, if there's problems with your manager, usually it's because something upstream went wrong, and now we're experiencing it downstream. So I want to make sure to emphasize to you that once you make these decisions, it is on you. The onus is on you to support and uplift and resource, and to not perpetually take things back. And sometimes you can be too helpful, okay? You can almost get in the way. You can just actually become a micromanager in that you don't allow people to take your specific instruction and practice it themselves without you being like a helicopter parent, basically. And that will destroy culture. People just don't like that. You can give them feedback about the job they do, and I'd much rather hear it and then fix it and then, have that kind of a cycle. But sometimes trying to help can go wrong, and we can be in the way sometimes. And in those cases, the best resource that you can offer people is access to you and a structure of communication that allows them to know that they're going to have regular communication where feedback can be given to them and they can give feedback to you. And so you're resourcing them with the time and space certainty. So there is a place and a time where we are going to talk. This becomes an institution that now this business has a manager. A manager in this business does these things. The owner in this business does these things. Just like we've talked about before with the owner's job description. So just be careful when you are trying to help that sometimes your help is not interpreted as being a little too helpful, almost like it's casting doubt on the person. And if you actually are doubtful of their abilities, and you have to either chalk that up to your own insecurity about this process and fear, or it's a sign that you actually have not instructed them and trained them very well, in which case that can happen some other time in a structured way where oftentimes the manager will get this passive aggressive vibe from the owner where they're trying to respect my authority, but they're also trying to take back my authority and flex their own authority, and I don't know what to do. And, at that point, I'm just going to shut down and say, what do you want me to do? The whole time, the question really is, what do you want me to do? And if we have managers who are frustrated and, shrinking back and afraid to make decisions, it's usually because owners are dropping the ball when it comes to training people to have the confidence based on very specific and meaningful communication of standards over time. Another practice that I would want you to add to your list of things to do when you're training and onboarding a manager is that you would hesitate before asserting or inserting yourself into a situation, because you may not know all that's going on. A previous episode, we talked about slowing down your response time. We want to be on top of things, and there's certain things we can be on top of. Hey, guess what? The paper towel dispenser in the bathroom is broken, so let's go fix it. We don't have to slow down our response time when it comes to paper towel dispensers. But when it comes to hearing that something happened on the bar or seeing somebody do something on the bar, depending on what it is, if you see something grossly negligent, I'm sure you in the moment may have to say something. But most of the time, respecting the clear lines of authority that you've set up is the best option, and it affords you the opportunity to get your emotions in check and figure out what's actually happening, because there might be more to the story than you're actually seeing in that moment, right? And it could be somebody said that this is the way we do it. You don't know who said that, but you're going to chastise the person who's doing it that way in the moment. And they're going to feel put out by it because, well, like, I'm just trying to do a good job and listen to people, and I'm new here and that kind of thing. So slowing down your response time or hesitating before you assert yourself into a situation is very, very critical. Take in the context and then come alongside the existing work and guide it. Be curious. Ask, how can I help? I am here. Like, you have the ultimate authority in the business. You are the most helpful person in the coffee shop. Well, you can be, at least. I'm always referencing episodes apparently, but there was an early episode. It was called Should You Be Behind the Bar Right Now, which is pretty funny episode. But yeah, the idea is like, why are you hanging out behind the bar? Like, you're not being helpful. There are other ways you can help, and there are other ways that you can support, and people long for you to do that. It'd be nice to know, yes, the owner can still pour a tulip. Okay, great. Vanity shifts and all of that stuff. But really, the most helpful thing you can do is be an awesome, supportive owner and a coach, and ask that question and be curious. How can I help and lift up everybody here? And every manager wants that. Unless they don't trust the owner, they don't want to interact with the owner. And then they're like, I want as little to do with the owner as possible. And I'm just doing this role to try to get experience as a manager. And then I'm out of here. Gosh, I would hate that to be your cafe. And, can I tell you the truth? A lot of people don't think it's them. And unbeknownst to them, it is them. And people feel that way about them. Sometimes not for a good reason. Other times for very good reasons. I've certainly had my fair share of conversations with people where I'm just like, hey, I don't think you really mean to be, but you're coming across a certain way, that you're behaving a certain way, and people are responding to it in this predictable way, right? That is going to, scale into this toxic culture. Want to self-examine, being self-aware, pass on that habit to others, and not be the type of boss who people dread walking in. So if you want to be the most helpful, the most resourcing, and the agent of clarity, and someone who is supporting your staff, you're going to have to be patient with the process, because you may have been sowing seeds of discord. You may have been inadvertently creating a reputation for yourself that needs to be undone over time. And trust takes time. Trust credit. Think about that. Building credit for trust in your cafe takes small wins, follow through, good faith over time. And that's how people learn to trust a manager. And generally, we just distrust people in authority. That's just the way our brains work. Okay? Does that mean in truth that all bosses are bad? Or that all bosses are trying to exploit you or something? No, of course not. Any more than it means that all baristas are trying to exploit the boss. I mean, the middle ground here is one that takes a little bit more time and understanding. Okay, so we got off on a tangent a little bit here. But when it relates to management, we have to talk about it because we're talking about transference of authority. Back to the beginning. This person has to be, in a lot of ways, better than you at management, at leadership. And they will become the focal point of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And your role in the process of onboarding and training them has to be ultimately one of supporting them, giving them clear guidelines and details on how to do the job, while at the same time being open to new ways to do things that accomplish the specific goals that you have as a business. And that allows the manager to take ownership of their role even more and become an actual mature leader over time. And so there's a lot here, and I would encourage you to go into the other episodes that I've linked up in the show notes about management and leadership. I think they're going to be very helpful for you as you seek to install managers. And I will say this, if you come to the conclusion that you have a manager right now who is not doing a great job, they are actually causing a lot of harm in the business, you need to remove that person as thoughtfully as possible. Okay, so when I say that, I mean you need a disciplinary process. It applies to managers just as much as it does to baristas. And you need to take them through that process, point out to them some of the things that they need to stop doing, and take them through. And you cannot shrink back from making the hard decision to remove somebody. And in that case, you might need to step back into that work. That might seem like I don't want to do that. I really don't want to do that. And what ends up happening is we're tacitly kind of saying, I will let this person ruin everybody's lives and create havoc because I don't want to go back into the cafe and do the management role. You absolutely have to if it comes down to it. Not saying it's going to be easy, but it's better to have trusted authority and trusted leadership that's at least in accordance with the values, even if it's hard to do, while you search for somebody else who's a better fit. But please don't subject your staff to toxic people out of convenience. The onboarding process is not just something that helps make great choices for managers successful. It's also a process that allows you to view this person in action, to be able to actually pull them back from this management role before they actually are 100% trained up and installed. So you can think of it that way. I just thought that was an important caveat there. And one more thing I want to say here is that management is not a dumping ground for every task that you have in your head that you don't want to do. It is a specialist in the cafe. Think of it that way. A specialist in the cafe is someone who is a specialist of people and of that space and that building and all of the goings on in it. And often we'll say, okay, well, we want you to be in charge of, the inventory, the ordering, the scheduling, the one-on-ones, the shifts, the training, the onboarding, the social media, the events. We're not going to pay you an actual professional wage, but we want you to do an inordinate amount of things. It's like the closing list mindset all over again. It's like we're writing to Santa Claus wanting all these things, but it's not realistic. So you really do need to treat this person like a real professional role. Even though there's an onboarding process, you are going to have to invest into them financially in a way that not only compensates them for lost shifts that they might have for admin days, but creates a living wage for them, as they are one of the most important roles in the cafe. It should be paid very competitively according to what managers get paid in your area. Again, mindset is pay what you can, not just what you can get away with. Yeah, do the math, put it out there, and let the role match the compensation too. Okay, so if you don't want a full-fledged manager, you can do an assistant manager with limited amount of tasks with increased pay. But people at this point are seeing through a lot of the games we play by saying, well, the experience is the payment, or we're trying to change the roles midstream, but not change the rate that we're paying people. And we wonder why we keep losing people or why the culture feels so tense and everything else. So with managers, you got to invest into them, not only with the time and attention that we've been talking about, but also financially. And so I will leave you with that, everybody. Now, if you have any questions, comments, or feedback about today's episode and these tips and insights into training a manager and supporting a manager, then go ahead and email me, chris@keystotheshop.com. That's also where you can reach out to talk about working with me one-on-one with Keys to the Shop consulting, and also to inquire about the key holder coaching groups coming up very soon, chris@keystotheshop.com. And speaking of very soon, when you're listening to this, I will be in Anaheim at Coffee Fest trade show. That is a 30-year-old event, 30 years of resourcing coffee shop retailers with lectures, trainings, and workshops and information to help them thrive as business people. They have the latte art competition there. They have the cold brew experience where you get to taste a lot of different people's cold brews. On top of that, you've got the trade show, of course, where you get to interact with vendors from all different services, cups and syrups and consultants and roasters, machine manufacturers, etc. It's all there. And of course, there is the community of coffee you get to interact with, and it's really amazing. So I'm going to be in the midst of enjoying all of that. And if you happen to listen to this episode that day, good on you, and let me know that you did. I will be there. I'll have a booth and I'm going to be speaking. But go to coffeefest.com to learn more about the upcoming show this year that is going to be in Orlando. That's in November. And you can get 50% off your registration by using the code KEYS, KEYS, 50% off general admission to Coffee Fest in Orlando. And there's some really cool shows coming up next year as well. Check them out over at coffeefest.com. And with that, that is the end of our show today, everyone. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me talk about my thoughts and tips on supporting managers, on training managers. I will say that if you see yourself that maybe you've fallen into some of these practices, it's not uncommon. You are amongst many people who are walking forward imperfectly, trying to get better and better. So don't beat yourself up. Just take the next step and be that much better the next time you install a manager. And hopefully today's episode was helpful for that. I thank you all for supporting the show. Don't forget to subscribe and share these episodes on social media. And as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.